Everyone, we'll start this planning board meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First item on the agenda is approval of the November 14th minutes.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Tom. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Second by Matt. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Also, public welcome David Johnson to the planning board. He was appointed by the new mayor, Mike Morse. He was on the planning board, then he left us for a little bit, and now he's back. So we're happy to have him. Item number 2, disclosure of conflict of interest. Do any board members have conflicts on any of the votes that they plan to take tonight? Okay, hearing none, we will move along. So C37 Capital LLC is requesting final plan approval for Countryside Mobile Home Park Phase 1 expansion. This review is in accordance with Section 9.1K of the Site Plan Review Ordinance. Randy.
Good
Can't
evening.
get away from us.
No, I can't.
Can't stay away.
I was hoping that someday, maybe, but when I'm out of business, maybe. I'm Randy Butler. I'm with Dirigo Engineering here in Fairfield, or just up the road in Fairfield, I should say. We've been working on this mobile home park for several years. I think most of you are familiar with it, but just to kind of give you a big, broad background. Our first work down there in mobile home parks was at Punky Meadows back in 1993. We started that project, so 30 years ago. And then over the course of years, new ownership and so forth, and new owner we started working with 6 or 8, back in 2015, I guess it was, with a desire, had eventually purchased Punky Meadows, then purchased Countryside Mobile Home Park, eventually purchased Village Green, that was LA Properties, and that's when we came in. 3 years ago, we got approval for this 60-lot expansion. Sometime after it was approved, the lot was sold to C37 Capital, Waterville, so that's who the current owner is. So they've been working on this development after you folks approved it, it was well over a year before we get final approval from DEP. So I think it was April of 2022, if my memory serves me correct, when they got approval from DEP. And then I believe they started construction that summer. And then they've worked that first summer, and it's extended through this past summer and so forth. So your permit basically allows a 2-year period before completion of construction. So if depending on when we call that start date, if we call it your start date when you approved, then we're about 3 years or almost 3 years out from that. So either way you look at it, we're looking to get a time extension to complete the work. I'll show you what has been completed. This is the overall map that we're looking to present. It's essentially not much has changed, and I'll go through the things that have changed here in a moment, but just to show you what has been completed to date. Essentially, coming in off West River Road is off on the right-hand side there. What you see in the red, that's the road network that's been completed so far. The blue is what we're hoping to complete here in the next few weeks, month or so, to try to wrap things up. Up on the upper left, they're planning to put in a turnaround, essentially, so a fire truck or any other larger vehicle out there, or a trash truck, or whatever the case may be, has space to turn around. So that's what's out there. They've been coordinating with the fire chief, especially to make sure that meets their requirements, and there's a letter that's been circulating from the fire chief to address that. And then on the lower part, that kind of dogleg, the L-shaped blue, they'll be extending that. It's about 300, maybe 400 feet extension that will allow them to tie in to Victoria Drive off from Countryside Mobile Home Park. So that will have the advantage of closing that loop. Right now, Victoria Drive is, I'm not sure, it might be 1,000 feet long of dead end or longer. And so that will have an advantage to everybody to have that loop closed in there. The homes that you see in red, kind of outlined in red, are the ones that they're trying to get finished up right away. Most of those ones, the slabs are done, and they're actually home setting on them. They're not set and finished yet, but if you were to go out there, you'd see about a dozen or more homes that are already on their pads. So they're hoping to get those wrapped up here in the next several weeks. What they're working on right now for construction is essentially utility work, is what's going on for earthwork, connecting water and sewer lines to the buildings. And then, of course, they'll have to join the buildings together and do all the work that's involved in skirting and all that sort of stuff to get it prepped for occupancy. So the goal, again, is to get those 17 livable here in the next month or so, and then continue to work after those are livable, to market those for sale and rental and so forth, and then to work on the remaining 13 that are on this half, what we'll call Phase 1A. It'd be kind of this easterly half that's up displayed there now, which will be about 30 homes, so essentially half of this development. The goal is to get that completed here in the next 5-6 months or so. And then they're going to kind of step back a little bit, reassess finances and so forth, and might be a little bit of a delay in construction for a little bit, take a little breather. There were a few minor changes from our original plan that we submitted 3 years ago. I sent out an email addressing that. Hopefully you've seen that. I won't go over all those details unless you ask me to, but just a couple of highlights. Originally, when we first did development 3 years ago, the roads didn't have names. We've since got names on those, so those are shown on the plans. Those are all approved by the 911 addressing officer. We added a line on the plans to designate the difference. So if we go back to that original plan, you'll see this kind of red line here, heavy red line, just indicating the boundary, so to speak, between Phase 1A and Phase 1B. And the goal in that is just to make sure, it's going to be, after they get this first 30 lots done, it may be 6 months, even perhaps as much as a year wait before they start proceeding with the next phase. So we just want to make sure everything's left in a reasonable condition for the public. And the other thing that we did, there were a few lot lines that we adjusted just by a foot, 1 to 3 feet, to accommodate homes. Originally, when we designed this, as much as possible, we're trying to fit 28 by 56 foot homes in there. But there's some places where lots were a little bit narrower. Some lots we had targeted for 24-foot homes, but with a change of ownership, they've got a different supplier, and they're not able to get 24-foot wide homes. So there's a few places where there's one line that we had, let me go to this next screen here. This line of 4 right here, right in this area here, we had slated for 24-foot wide homes. But we've changed those. Essentially, there were 54-foot wide lots, so we've kind of alternated them to make some 50-foot for single wides, some 58-foot to fit the 28-foot wides. I think that covers most everything that I've got for you. I welcome any questions you may have.
All right, questions for Randy?
Randy, can you explain the changes that you made?
You want more detail on them?
Yeah.
Okay. So the changes are primarily, I'll go through a list here, and I think this is almost verbatim from what I had emailed to you, but just to clarify, as I just mentioned, we originally had a few lots that were sized for 24-foot wide homes. Those aren't available from the owner's supplier, so we've widened 2 lots to accommodate 28-foot homes and narrowed down the ones adjacent to those to 50. So part of what they're targeting is they're able to get 16-foot wide, single wides now, and one of the common sizes for that is 66 feet. Back in the day, a common size to purchase 15 years ago was a 14 by 70, and you always take off 4 feet from that because that 70 feet includes 4 foot of tongue. So the actual box is 66 feet. So another thing that we've done, in addition to changing the lot widths just by a foot or 2 or 3, is we've changed the right-of-way width. Just by adding a foot to the right-of-way width allows us to fit those 66-foot boxes in there. A 100-foot lot doesn't quite, by the time you account for your setbacks, you've got 20-foot setback in the front, 15-foot setback in the back. You take those away from 100, you're left off with 65. So just by getting it to a 23-foot right away allowed us to go with a 66-foot box.
So the new lot is 101 feet, is that?
Yes,
correct?
yeah, there's a string there that were originally 100 feet. And when we designed it originally, we put the right-of-ways at 24 feet. They're only required to be 23, so we just simply said, well, let's just steal that 1 foot out of there to accommodate these mobile homes. And then there are some lots on the right-hand side, well, almost middle, in the center of the screen. Let me get the mouse here if this will work. On this line through here, these ones we had originally designed at 110 feet deep. But by just adding 1 more foot allows them to fit a 16 by 80 foot mobile home there. Mobile homes are getting larger, and we're just accommodating them by making that minor change there. I think that covers the lot changes. And there were a few minor changes that we made on Phase 1B as well. The same sort of thing by just 2 or 3 lots that we just adjusted by a foot or so just to accommodate these larger homes.
Did you make any changes to accommodate for water runoff or wetlands or anything? Nothing?
No. One thing we will need to do, I'm glad you brought that up, and I did the math on that this morning. On these 4 lots that we're talking about, by making these changes, it's going to increase the footprint, the impervious area on those 4 lots by about 10%. So what we'll need to do is we'll have to upsize. There's an under-drain soil filter over here that's going to take some of that drainage. So we'll have to work with DEP to make sure that that's clear, that is upsized accordingly. It's essentially proportional. So if the drainage area is increased by 10%, then the under-drain soil filter needs to be enlarged by 10%.
Since we looked at this plan last, which was in 2021, there's been additional subdivision by LA Properties. I believe you brought it before us, map 16, lot 101, up to the north and west. That was developed. It's proposed for development.
The field,
lots.
yes,
The
you're talking
field?
about the field, yes, the
Yeah.
17-acre field, yes, correct.
Does this plan that we're looking at tonight, does that take into account the land clearing or the runoff or the proposed increase in impervious area from the adjacent property and how it impacts the runoff?
Well, there is no, you're talking about this piece up here that's been subdivided?
We had an abutter, I believe it was Pellerin on this map. It was he spoke at the meeting, and he was saying that the water is running off.
Okay,
and
yes.
It's on his property. It's
Right,
an
yes,
issue.
yes, that's Jeff Pellerin, and he's here tonight, if, I'm not sure if he cares to take the podium, but this has been a trouble spot right here all along. When Village Green was constructed, back in the early 90s, they did not allow anything for drainage for this. There's a little bit of just a slight swale, I guess you might say, that part of this field, I think there's actually maybe a couple of areas in that field, relatively flat, but just creating a little bit of a pocket where that water is not able to get through there. And one of the things I just mentioned to Jeff tonight is that we would be interested in talking with him about doing something to improve that. Again, it's nothing that's been caused by this owner. It's caused by the previous work done 20, 30 years ago almost. But our owner is willing to look into it to see if there's something that we can alleviate.
And this plan that we're looking at tonight doesn't need any changes to how it, since 2021, how it accommodates runoff or?
No.
What? No?
No, correct.
Right. All right.
Questions for Randy?
Excuse me.
Randy, do you have to go back to DEP at all to get this?
The only thing that we might need to just go back for, as I just mentioned, for those 4 lots that we're changing, we're just increasing that area by about 10%. So we've got an under-drain soil filter that, I don't know the dimensions of it, but just for easy numbers' sake, suppose it's 90 feet long, we may just have to increase it to be 100 feet long, or something of that nature. They would not see that as something that's significant at all.
So are you able
But
to share with-
I will contact them and.
Are you
and
able to
make
share with us your DEP approval
Am-
that you've already received then?
I don't have it with me. Yes, we've got the approval, yes. Ann's got, I assume Ann's got records of it when it came in to,
You do?
yes, yeah, we've got all those approvals. And as
Kinda
well
wanted
as,
to read that.
if you note on the plans, that's the other change I did make on the plans. If you look in your notes, kind of where this list of notes is in the center of your plan, you'll notice that I've made just one change in the verb tense there, kind of right in the middle. It's kind of outlined in a little red cloud, where the plan originally, 3 years ago, okay, thank you, we do have it. Okay, so I do have a copy of the DEP permit here for the stormwater management. At the time, we didn't have the permit, so the old plan said permits must be obtained. This plan now says permits have been obtained.
Okay. So a problem that we heard about when we were visiting for the other part of the mobile home park was that some of these newer homes have had some runoff issues and flooding underneath their homes. Is this where that's happening?
Some on this property you're talking about?
Some of the newer homes that have been installed as part of these expansions.
There were some
people
troubles.
have moved into
Okay,
have had running water
okay,
underneath their
right, yeah, that was
their
it.
mobile homes. And I understand that you have repaired the drainage issue
Right,
for the time being. But
Right.
my concern, I guess, is that how can we ensure that this is not going to happen for future homes that are in this area, right? Like if
What-
it's a problem that seems to be persisting,
right. A lot of it is in who's doing the work, contracting, and not necessarily paying attention to what goes on. One of the things that we've added, let's see if I can navigate to the plan here. One of the things we added to the plan, in fact, maybe I just went by it there. No, not that one. We've added this detail in the upper right on this plan here. Let me see if I can find my tools to expand that. We've added this detail to make it clear that there's supposed to be a bit of a swale between the homes. The previous installer didn't install anything for a swale between the homes, and they also graded in some cases, graded the loam right up to the edge of the slab, which is not necessarily the right way to do that. So let me get over here. So there's that detail there we've added to the plan to make clear to the contractor, and we've impressed that upon this contractor for this site that we want to make sure we don't have that situation where water is running off the homes and into another home. One of the issues I will say that they had on that first one is apparently somewhere in the last few years, they've modified the sizes on the double wide slightly. So when they built the slab, they'd build them at just a few inches wider than 14 feet. But then they were being, or it was actually the wider homes, I think. They'd build them just a few inches wider, but then the homes were coming in like 6 inches narrower. So they were ending up with as much as a 6 or 8 inch, even a 10-inch excess slab on the outside, which could tend to catch water running, rainwater and so forth, and running underneath.
well,
So
it
that's.
wouldn't catch water though, the water was being drained properly.
Well, there's a lot of variables to it, but yes, right. If we get rid of this, this is going to be the primary issue
Okay,
to
where's
resolve.
the recreation area in this plan?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing. So you mentioned that in your email, the proposed recreation area is in
Yes.
Phase 1B.
Yes, okay.
If the board desires there to be a temporary recreation area in Phase
Right.
1A, it would need to be 3,000 square feet. Same question.
Yep, sure, yep. This is where the original one was located, so this is kind of just showing the westerly half of the park, this plan here. So right here is where we had it originally, we'll still have it for the entire park. It's a little over 6,000 square feet, which is what's required for 60 lots. So that's the design there. We had a walkway coming to it here, a little right-of-way between these lots, as well as 3 parking spots here and a right-of-way here getting to that lot. So what we're proposing, if the board desires to have a recreation area, excuse me, defined for Phase 1, what we're proposing to do is, again, this road here is going to be extended out through. So what we're proposing to do is temporarily use this lot number 10 for a recreation area. And that would be essentially graded off, loamed and seeded, so it becomes a lawn space, is essentially what will happen there.
Aren't I seeing an underground filtration system on
That-
Lot 10?
Eventually, but that won't be there for the time, for this phase.
But it's in the Phase 1A.
No, that drain soil filter is not. Phase 1A, sorry, this first part of the phase, we're not building these lots. We're extending the road through just to get access to Victoria Drive, but we're not building those 3 lots that the road is passing by. So that opens up that lot, or any one of those lots are available to become recreation space on a temporary basis. until we get Phase 1B constructed.
Okay. Any other questions for Randy from the board right now? Okay, I'll open it up to members of the public.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have concerns about the licensing. The park is licensed as Country Meadows Parks, but they're still using Village Green, Countryside, Punky Meadows. Punky Meadows, Village Green, and Countryside expired, okay? It was withdrawn. So the only license out there is under Country Meadows Parks, which means that the parks is all one. So people at Village Green, Countryside, Punky Meadows, they have the right to request a stipulation put in so that if they can proceed with developing, we are sitting here with broken pads. We are sitting here with gross water. We are sitting here with trees that are falling on our homes that are not being removed. We have buffers that are supposed to be there that are 25 feet. I went out and measured it with my husband today, not even 20 feet. We have trees falling on our land and on our homes that they are saying is not their responsibility, even though they're not our trees. We don't have the right to go cut the trees down, but because of the clearing that they did out back, all the trees are coming onto our homes. And then we get told, not our problem, it was an act of God. But I don't have the right to remove that tree. We have a tree standing right now that Roger, who's behind me, knows is dead, knows is supposed to be cut down. We're getting another storm tonight. I have no right to go cut that tree down, but it's gonna fall on my house. I already paid to fix my roof. I have a guy coming back to fix it came through the tub surround, which is a pretty strong piece of plastic. But I have to absorb the cost because these people say, not my problem. The problem is they cleared the land behind our homes. They left one row of very tall pine trees, and they don't care. So they're developing this property behind us, but yet I can give you an email right here where they say we're short on cash. But so how are they gonna fund it? Because you have to prove you can fund it in order to move forward with development. They're not fixing the pad that the state told them back in March they had to, May, they had to fix. There's just a lot of discrepancies. They just don't care. There's 322 homes listed under Country Meadows. This is not Countryside. I think that they're using Countryside and Village Green and Punky Meadows as a way to confuse the town. Because if you call it one park, you can say, okay, so you gotta fix all the state deficiencies. They're in a failed status right now. They shouldn't be asking to develop. They should be bringing themselves to a place where they're not failing. And they're not. Why? Because they don't care. They don't care what conditions people have to live in. We still don't have any green space. We're one park. They sent out notices last year, or 22, May 25th, 22, saying we are now Country Meadows Parks. We are one. But yet, they're telling the city there are 3 different parks to kind of throw you off so that you can't say, okay, you gotta fix this pad over in Village Green. You gotta fix this caving in home over here. You gotta do these things before you can proceed. I mean, they've been telling an awful lot of lies, and it's time to make them accountable. The city can do that right now. The city gave them permission to clear that land, which is causing our trees to fall on our homes because it's such a wide open space. I could show you pictures of the trees. You take one look at them, you're gonna know. That's why they're falling. Matter of fact, I made this packet for you. I'll just give it all to you.
Randy, what is this park actually registered under then?
That's in there as well.
Which one is your place? Which one is your place?
Yeah.
She's in Village Green.
Then, like,
Where are you,
I'm in Village Green.
But-
I'm right along, like,
roughly?
you got the trees right here. I'm right on this side.
Can you just show us on
Take-
the map? We don't have all of yours,
Where's
but
Village
you
Green?
can see.
So,
This is Village Green Road.
okay, so if this goes in like this, is this the new development?
This is the new
Down here, yeah.
development. This is where Cassidy's live.
So
This is West
this
Riverside.
it's hard, sorry.
It is hard.
This is, like the spots they have currently.
There's a single wide right here, or right here, I'm not sure which one it is. But I would probably be right here. Because there's two. This is not good. This is double wide, single wide, double wide, single wide, single wide, double wide. So that's not even accurate, but most of these homes don't have problems. That came right from Brad Street. So if, can we see this? I'll just show you better here. So this is the row of trees. Okay.
I think it's right here.
See, okay, so here's your row of trees, right? You see this tree? Just want to point that out. Here's a single wide they put right here. This is my home. This is a single wide. But you see, it's supposed to be 25 feet of trees, 25 like. But of course those are going to fall down. You breathe and you fall down.
Trees are, it's a hard, that's a gray area, unfortunately. It is, like, if my neighbors have a bunch of trees and I don't take good care of them, they fall on my property, it's my problem. I know it does, but it's truly, like, that's a super gray area, that's not, I feel like trees are
They don't care. So there's a double wide, a single wide, double wide. Yeah, okay, so this is weird. So this is weird. If I go this way. This is weird. This is
The trees are where, right here?
no, they're right here.
Right here. Okay.
And then
Is that a required buffer?
it is supposedly, I got told they got $100 fine for that.
Okay.
And then all the work that they're doing here is disturbing.
Sorry, I'm just trying to squeeze back in here. We're gonna pass it down.
These buffers aren't required.
Should be the park owner. They only pay, right? These people just pay a lot.
All right, I want to rein us back in. We're gonna kind of look at that.
We took down all
Randy, who's responsible for like the maintenance of the grounds of the park?
grounds. Anytime there's work orders come in, we keep care of them as fast as we can.
So if a tree falls, whose responsibility is it?
We clean them up as fast as we can,
Okay.
okay? We have spent $44,000 this summer cutting down trees. We have spent
Who spent?
C37.
Okay.
Cutting down trees where though? In the new clearing area or maintaining?
Everywhere throughout all
I want to
three.
know how it's being maintained where people are currently living, because we did just have a really bad storm. And it is
Correct.
concerning if there's trees on people's homes.
There was trees on people's homes. We did go around and cut them down. If they fell on the homes, we were not going to be responsible for any further damages, any damages done to their homes. It's an act of God.
Does anybody know if that applies to leased land?
I'm not an attorney.
Right, we
Can't
should
imagine.
find out we should at least just find out for argument's sake. You know, on private property, if somebody else's tree falls on your home, it's your problem. It's the homeowner's problem, even if it's somebody else's tree. But I don't know how that applies to leased land. Since you own the park and the people who live there are leasing the space from C37, we need to find out if somebody should find out if that's different.
According to our attorneys, that is, but fair enough.
According to your attorneys, it is different or it is
N-
the same?
It is the same,
Okay. Your lawyer said that?
correct.
We'll look into it, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the status of the buffer along the property on West River Road that we saw when we went out there?
The buffer on, you'll have to tell me between what?
By the salt shed?
Are there more than
Yeah.
one buffer that doesn't exist?
There's multiple buffers.
I mean, the one that does not exist anymore. Are there more than
They
one
all
that I
exist.
didn't see?
They all exist, ma'am.
I saw with my own two eyes that there was a home on West River Road, I believe, is it lot, which one is it, Tom? Lot
We lot,
17 at
map.
4?
Yeah, 4.
Yeah. Map 17, lot 4, where that homeowner quite literally can look into the maintenance shed. In fact, she told me she's seen your maintenance people going to the bathroom. Her children have seen maintenance people going to the bathroom out there. So I know for a fact there isn't a buffer there because I saw it. It had been cut down, completely cleared out. So I want to know what the status is about that. Is there a buffer there?
There is no buffer there, and as we explained last time, there never was a buffer there originally. I realize your ordinance calls for one, but that home has been there the home was originally owned, the folks that originally owned the home also owned the park. They also owned the garage that was there, so there was no buffer. There has been no buffer ever at that spot.
Right, but it's the responsibility of the park to maintain the buffers as required by ordinance, and that is a buffer that's required by ordinance. Have steps being taken to remedy that situation?
No. I guess part of my question is, and this is, we're going to get into a little bit of a battle here. We're talking about a park that has nothing to do with what we're doing here tonight. And I think you might be crossing the lines as far as what you're allowed to oversee. We're talking about the extension of a time for this park here. We're not talking about other issues that, yes, they need to be resolved. I'm not questioning that they need to be resolved, but that's not part of what we're here for tonight. And any issue that does need to be resolved, we can't go out there and grow trees overnight. Yes, maybe there's some buffer that's got to happen there, but we were only here 2 months ago. It's unrealistic to expect
Trees could be planted so that they do start growing, right? And Randy, we're kind of splitting hairs at this point because you're connecting all of these parks together. You just told us that it's going to connect to Victoria Drive, which is part of Countryside, which is where the buffer should be, right? So it's all connected. So really, you're modifying that park as well because you're making a connection. So I'm not going to split hairs over it. I'm going to say you have to follow all of the laws and regulations as put in the ordinance everywhere.
I guess that's something that we'll have to discuss with the city's attorney as far as that buffer, whether or not that's grandfathered. I don't know. They are, I will
In the
tell.
last meeting, they said they would be more than willing to put in that buffer in the last meeting. It is unacceptable. We're not going to keep being wishy-washy, saying one thing, not doing another thing. We fought for years to make sure the Harts got the buffer that they were promised year after year after year after year. So
So let me interrupt here, ma'am. So understand that C-37 just took over these parks 18 months ago. So in 18, and I understand the Harts, and Todd is sitting right here, and I've spent many, time working with Todd, and I have, after 25 years, you can't hold C-37 Capital responsible for anything over the past 25 years. We are not responsible for what happened prior of C-37.
with all due respect, we can because you own it now, so it's your problem now, okay?
Yes,
So-
and we are fixing everything there.
Okay. I just
Did go
asked
through and put
if
a
you made any steps
360
or
foot.
plans.
We put 360 feet of fence in between that for the Hart. That was required 25 years ago. I made sure it happened.
The ordinance requires 25 feet of a vegetative buffer, though, on all borders of the park. That's what's caught by our law of this city. Okay?
Okay.
So the fence is wonderful, and Todd has agreed to allow the fence, and I think that it's probably more beneficial for him in his situation based off of the status of the trees in that area. But the ordinance, the law requires 25 feet wide vegetative buffer, okay? So that's the question at hand. And I was just asking what the status of that was, because I think the ongoing changes to the park are relevant to this. Are there any other questions for Randy?
So I don't know that I have a question for
Yeah.
Randy. I guess the question for us that I have, I mean, it feels like tensions are running high. Legitimately, people are upset and concerned. The question that Randy's posing is, can we, you're suggesting that we're overstepping by preventing a project from moving forward if something hasn't been upheld. I think we can sit here and say, if you take over a property and you own a property, you unfortunately inherit problems that existed beforehand. Unfortunately, that's just the reality. I, as a planning board member, certainly don't expect anyone to grow trees overnight. I accept that. But if there are problems that have been known, they do need to be resolved. And I think we're all in agreement with that, right? I think everyone agrees. I think it's fair to say whether someone wants a fence or not doesn't really matter. If the city has an ordinance, that's the ordinance that has to be followed. Are we within our rights to say, if something isn't being upheld, that we have concerns about agreeing to a project moving forward because something else hasn't been done? Is that what I'm hearing? Right? Like, can we say no to something because something else isn't being done?
I guess that's up to you.
I would look at it as number 9 on the site plan review. That's the question.
Yeah.
Does the developer have adequate financial and technical capacity to meet the above stated standards? And I think that's what's coming into question.
Yeah.
So.
Are there any other comments from the public?
One comment and one question. Can we force them to use the name that they're licensed under? Because you can't really keep hiding behind other names. They're not doing business as Village Green, Countryside, Punky Meadows. They are licensed in the state of Maine as Country Meadows Parks, 1 unit, 322 sites. So can't we force them to use the name that they license themselves under? And then the comment is affordability. Very first line in there says, "We are short on cash." So I don't think they can afford it either, but that's what I have to add.
And as far as like on the plan, it says Countryside. Does it have to be whatever's filed with the mobile home? Or can you call it whatever you want? I'm just wondering if that part of the plan needs to be amended.
Possibly, I'm willing to. I didn't realize they had made the change. They had talked about it something 6 or 8 months ago, and I didn't realize that they had carried through with that. So if it's necessary to change the plans, the names on the plans, has it been that long? Okay, yeah, I haven't, okay. I wasn't in the loop on that, so that's certainly something that we can change.
Yeah, it might be a problem with the registry, Randy, I'm not sure.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a quick question for Randy. The proposed roads that you're building, are these paved? Are they gravel? What are we?
They're currently gravel.
Okay.
The plan is to eventually pave them,
Okay.
The plan would be to wait until phase 1B, the 60 lots are constructed so that we're not driving heavy equipment over paved roads. I would make a note, though, they're not required to be paved. The intent is to pave them, but just to be clear. Just to give you a rough rule of thumb, typically it costs almost as much to pave a road as it does to build the road from scratch. So there's significant cost in that. And to get back to the financing, yes, that is part of the reason that they're kind of taking a break. There's enough financing to finish this phase 1A, to get this portion of it done, and then they're going to take a break and kind of regroup, and they're hoping they can restart. Their goal is to start within 12 to 24 months when they get things back in order.
As a follow-up to the road condition in the new portion of the park, is there any plan to fix or redo the road bed in the Victoria Drive or the Campground Road, where all the water mains were, the water pipes were breaking because of trucks, or the water mains keep failing in the original part of Countryside?
In Victoria Drive?
Yeah, I believe it's Victoria Drive.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure if that's exactly where, maybe Roger can.
They've had a lot of,
Is it
when we visited the park.
Victoria?
Okay.
Pardon me?
Victoria
Yeah,
Drive.
yeah. I guess I'm not sure if I haven't heard of anything plans, certainly not to do a wholesale reconstruction of the road. I'm not sure what the,
Okay, so you're going to be directing a lot of traffic, onto these existing roads.
well, I don't think Victoria Drive is going to see that much more traffic. In fact, it might see a decrease in traffic. There's no incentive for anybody, most anybody in the new park. If you look at the total layout here, anybody in the new park, I can't see any advantage to them there's no shortcutting going down to Victoria Drive to come out through here, a relatively narrow road, tighter conditions. If I were there, I'd just, take the road out, the new road out. I don't anticipate that they're going to, in fact, I could almost see a little bit of a decrease on Victoria Drive, because I would anticipate that some of these folks on the end of Victoria Drive would come in on the new road.
Will people be living in Part 1A while this construction is going on? Like, will people be moving in?
Yeah, right. Yeah, the intent is to have, as I said, within about a month or so, to try to have these first 17 units finished and, to sell them, to occupy. So ideal world, by springtime, we've got 17 units occupied. So yes, they will be occupied. And then they'll get the remaining 13 completed. So yes, there will, ideal world, or the forecast is that they'll have these first 30 lived in, occupied, while they're doing work on the back 30.
So I was thinking people may take Victoria Drive if there's ongoing construction in Phase 1A and 1B.
Well,
where the construction
no,
vehicles
there
coming
won't be
and
any construction on the first parts of the roads, no. The roads themselves will all be totally done. These roads that I showed you before, let me scroll here. These roads will all be done, other than paving, but the gravel will all be done within a few weeks, a month or so. So those will all be functional. So there won't be any construction on the roads themselves. All the construction will be out to the left here.
Right, but the
Heavy construction.
construction
Yeah.
vehicles
Oh,
will
yes,
have to-
correct,
Yeah.
correct, yes. Construction vehicles coming through, dump trucks, et cetera.
Yes.
Just a quick question. In your email, you say that you have to provide a temporary turnaround at the end of Amelia and Valerie Lanes, and that by the meeting, you'll have a resolution.
Right, yes.
What did you
Yeah,
just say?
that's what, this is Valerie Lane here.
Okay.
So that's what this is the one turnaround here.
Okay.
At this location. And that, again, that's been approved by the fire chief. And then over here, instead of doing the turnaround, we decided it's not that much further to hook this road on here.
Okay.
So that we don't need to do the turnaround. So that essentially closes that loop. The advantage of that is it eliminates the dead end for both of these runs. It eliminates the dead end on Victoria. It prevents us from having a dead end on this Amelia Drive.
Okay.
Sorry, this is Valerie. I get the names mixed up. This top one is Amelia. This one down here is Valerie.
All right, thank you.
I've got a quick question, and it might be more for the owners. Would you mind coming up real quick? He's a manager. Or manager. But, I would assume when they purchased the property, they knew there was some work to be done. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and we are still actively in the parks every day.
Yep.
Doing work.
Was there some sort of timeline in your minds on what that might be?
I've told everybody that to get to our end goal is going to take us 5 years. Nothing's going to happen overnight.
Right.
These parks were neglected for many years. We knew this, in which I'm seeing it coming in. There's a lot of unseen stuff. I've worked with code enforcement multiple times.
And do you have a plan of action in place with code enforcement?
I do. I speak with code enforcement on a weekly basis.
Okay, thank you. And the reason I ask is I think a lot of the issues that keep coming up at planning board meeting fall a little bit more under code enforcement and not so
And
much planning board.
code enforcement is out in the parks
Right.
weekly.
Okay,
I just met last week. I just met right after I met with the fire marshal, Jason, he's somewhere with the fire department.
Yeah.
Along with Dan Bradstreet. I met with him, and far as to go with, he's the one that is requesting the connection to Victoria Drive for fire purposes. He's requesting from day one that the parks to have that connected, and that's the reason.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, last questions for Randy. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Hillary.
Okay, so Randy, we talked about it. I just want to clarify. So we can have a recreation area in 1A?
You can, yes.
Yes.
If you desire to, yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great. It sounds like 1A can be completed, do you say 5 to 6 months?
I would think that's reasonable, Roger. She's asking if that Phase 1A could be completed in 5 to 6 months. I think that's reasonable.
Yes.
Is that what you're targeting?
Yes, give us a 6-month extension, that's fine.
Well,
Okay.
no, we're not looking, we're just saying 6 months for that. We're looking for a longer extension to do.
Correct,
Right.
okay, 6 months. Sorry, you looking for a 6-month extension for 1A, is that what I'm hearing?
No, I'm asking how long to complete 1A.
Oh, I would say 6 months.
Okay. I'm holding your feet to the fire now. Are there funds to complete 1A right now?
To complete 1A, yes, there is.
Okay, but do I understand correctly, there are not funds to complete 1B?
We're running low, so that was the game plan, that's why we're splitting it up.
Right, no, I understand that. It's just if one of the questions is,
Yes.
are there funds to complete this
There is
project?
funds.
The answer is
Yes, to complete 1A.
right, but there are not funds to complete 1B. Okay,
Once we sell the homes that's in 1A, that we have money tied up in, we can take that money to,
no, I understand that. No, I got that. But that's not the question is, will there be funds? It's, do you have the funds? And the answer is no.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
for 1A.
Right, no.
Yep.
For 1B, you do not. Correct.
Right, I believe there are, what, 15 homes sitting out there right now, Roger? Something like that, give or take. So, as you said, a lot of money tied up in those.
We have purchased 17 homes. We currently have 12 homes on pads.
So the goal is to get some of those sold off to generate some revenue, and as well as rentals and so forth, to be able to fund the next portion.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
So Victoria Drive, they're going to extend and connect the two.
Come to the, can you come around?
Yep. So you guys are going to connect to Victoria Drive? Correct. So Victoria Drive, we have a page that's for the parks so that we can know what's going on. Every other day, they have no power, no water, no notice at all. Power just goes off, water goes out. So I would like to, I don't live in Victoria Drive, but, kind of as helping them a little bit, I would like to know that somebody's going to correct that issue, because Victoria Drive is already extremely strained. So they're going to connect to Victoria Drive. People are going to be going in and out. It's going to add way more congestion. And like I said, that road is already, it's very, very strained. Nobody ever has water. Nobody ever has power. Nobody ever gets a notice from RCM. And when they do, it might be 20 minutes. Oh, oops. So in their defense, I think that somebody needs to look at the power issue and the water issue in Victoria Drive before putting more strain on them. Just my thought.
Randy, where is the water, where are the utilities getting connected? Are they getting connected through the existing Countryside Park?
All water, sewer, and electric is coming off from West River Road, and it is a brand-new service. It is a 6-inch main water line that is coming off from West River Road. Nothing of the new expansion has anything to do with any utilities of Countryside. Countryside, when water goes down, if it's emergency, we text everybody through our system. Power goes out, has nothing to do with us, has anything to do with CMP. I can tell you the other day, What happened was, as the tree company was taking down the trees, one of the trees did take down a line that has nothing to do with us. Did I even know about it? I was the last one, time I got known about it, I was one of the last ones. CMP power has nothing to do with us. Water, we have fixed everything that as we come there and we give everybody a notice, as long as we have no time.
So you're on, it's city water, right?
City water.
Right, okay. It's just completely, they're not connected to the other parks at all. Okay, thank you. That was my
There's
question.
no interconnection between the sewer and water to
Okay.
the park, so it won't have any impact either way. And as I said earlier, the traffic, if anything, I could see the traffic decreasing on Victoria because people are out on this end of Victoria. To me, it's going to be just as quick to go into
The new expansion.
the new expansion to get out to West River Road.
And do we have a letter from Jeff Longfeld? Did that come in today? No? Okay.
No, I reached out to him this afternoon and didn't get a hold of him. So we'll make that a condition of approval if you go to that point.
Yeah, we did get the letter from the sewer district, and they did talk about how it's a brand-new system and won't impact anything. We just haven't seen the water, but it sounds like it's being designed as a new hookup.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, we have a findings and facts, so I'll entertain any motions regarding that.
I would make the motion to approve 1A expansion with a 1-year extension, seeing that would have the ability to financially to complete that. And then we'll see about what goes on from there, but 1A for 1-year extension.
Second.
Can we add the recreation part?
Oh, yes, the recreational area.
Any further comments? Randy, is that part okay with you, or?
No, not particularly. I'd like to get approval for the entire thing. I think
So
they've,
can I
pardon
ask
me.
you if your choices are 1A or nothing?
well, obviously, we'd pick
Okay.
1A or nothing. If that's all there is for choice, we'll take it. But I think bottom line is there has been a lot of improvements that have been done, and you're not going to satisfy everybody. You could go around the city of Waterville and have hundreds of complaints about the job that the city of Waterville is doing or any other small town is doing. So you're never going to have 100% of the people satisfied no matter what you're doing. So you've got to take that into account when you're making these decisions, is that not every claim that is made is true, and hopefully you can discern what is true and what is not and so forth. And make decisions based on your ordinance, not based on emotion. You've got ordinance that gives you ground rules to go by, and if the plan is meeting your ground rules, then, as was mentioned earlier, the enforcement is up to code enforcement to make sure that it meets the requirements. You've got rules, guidelines to go by. We've attempted to meet those rules and guidelines. So, we would encourage, obviously, we'll take 1A if that's all you can give, but we'd like to get approval on the full package so that they can plan accordingly.
Can I say something?
You absolutely can.
I don't think I'm obligated to, but I want to be clear. I'm not doing this because of emotions. No,
I'm not suggesting anything.
well, it sounds a little bit like you are. I just want to be clear. This is not about emotions, and this is actually not about me feeling like people aren't being served well individually. I'm with you, totally. I think there's some code enforcement issues that need to be taken care of by code enforcement. There are some facts here that I'm concerned about. I'm not convinced there's money to fund a project, and part of that is going to delay a project, which means people are going to be living in conditions that they shouldn't be because there aren't funds. Get 1A done, come back with the money. You sell the properties, you're going to have a lot more money to work with. I'll be more compelled to vote yes. The code enforcement issues need to be handled with code enforcement. Acts of God are acts of God. I appreciate that, so I want to be clear. I'm operating over here on facts, not feelings.
I'd like to say, the reason I like the amendment is I know, you stated there were issues with some previous work that was done not too long ago with grading issues, and it was a contractor issue. Like, this is not a question of, the engineering. I think the engineering work is great, and you're making adjustments to the plans to try to make sure that those same things don't happen again. And I think what we're saying, or at least what I'm saying, is, okay, prove it, right? Let's make sure we get good contractors in there doing the work properly so that these issues don't happen again with Phase 1A. So that's where I'm at.
I would like to add that I'm actually basing my decision fully off of the ordinance. And, there's a piece of the ordinance that says mobile home parks should not be on poorly drained land. Mobile home parks should not be subject to flooding, erosion, fire, safety, or general welfare problems. And based off of the current conditions of the park, I am not convinced that increased expansion meets that part of the ordinance right now. And so that's where my decision-making is coming from, directly from the ordinance. And, you are amending the countryside ordinance, so I would like to see the buffers that need to be put in along people's property lines put in before any further expansion happens. I mean, now that you're amending it, you have to get everything else up to speed.
Can you articulate for me the adversity that you would experience with this amendment?
It probably will be acceptable. We haven't really looked at this as an option. I don't see it, foreseeing it being an issue. I think it's reasonable. Well, yep.
Okay.
So you'll revise the plan and bring us back a plan that doesn't show 1B?
I can. Is it possible to just approve it like this with a stipulation that it is only 1A? It's a lot of work is my point. If we can do it without having to amend the plan,
it comes back-
or else to just make it more clear, because when I make these changes, there's 10,000 objects that are moving around, shifting around, and so forth. So if I can do it just by simply showing a line in the plan to make it clear,
And so you'll add a note to that effect?
yes, yeah. And maybe what I'll do is I'll run it by you, work with you to make sure we get the verbiage right and so forth.
Can we also have the correct park name if it comes back, if we're signing a site plan with whatever it's called, if it's Country Meadows Parks, if that's the correct legal entity for this addition?
Yes,
Just to make sure
I'll,
that's
right, correct. Yeah, I'll make sure we
It's
get
not
that.
on here.
Right, yes, and like I say, that's the first I've heard of it, so I will make sure we get the right name on there.
Okay. There's a motion and a second on the floor. So we can read through the findings and facts, Randy. Sorry, you just sat down. So item number 1, the development will not result in undue water or air pollution.
True,
Okay. Number 2, sufficient water is available for reasonable foreseeable needs of the development.
true,
Number 3, will not cause unreasonable soil erosion or a reduction in the capacity of the land to hold water.
true,
Number 4, the development will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion.
true,
Number 5, the development will provide for adequate solid waste disposal.
true.
What is the solid waste disposal plan? Just city?
No, it's not the city, it's private. Because it's private property, it will remain private, so they have Gregory Disposal doing the
Okay.
work, curbside pickup.
Do we have to have a trash pickup area like on the plan, or where do people bring their trash?
No, it's curbside, so it's right beside the homes.
Okay.
Yep,
Number 6, the development will not cause an unreasonable burden on the municipality to dispose of sewage.
true,
Number 7, the development will not have an undue adverse effect to the scenic or natural beauty of the area.
True.
Number 8, the development is in conformance with zoning.
True.
Number 9, the developer has adequate financial and technical capacity to meet the above stated standards.
True.
So conditions, is somebody scribing? Yep. Okay. Did you add into the conditions, this is only for
I did.
1A?
I marked it as the extension is only for 1A as shown on the site plan until January 9th, 2025.
For 1 year, yep, thank you. Motion by Tom, second by Dave. All in favor? Opposed? I was opposed.
Yeah, you guys can
Yeah.
all circle that.
So 6 to 1.
Okay. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
You've got the motion and the second. Who seconded?
Me.
Yeah. Okay. Where did my agenda go? Yep. Okay. Item number 4, KV Cap Real Estate is requesting preliminary and final plan review for creation of 37 apartments at 52 King Street.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Great to see you all again. Yeah, this is the project that I spoke to you about back in September. I don't know where the mouse is. This is a collection of 4 properties down on King Street between there, I'm not sure how to zoom in without a keypad or a keyboard. This is King Street down along here, Gold Street up the side, and Summer Street across the back. And this parcel, it's about a 3.18 acre parcel, is made up of actually 4 individual parcels. There's 52 King Street, 24 and 26 Gold Street right in here, and 52 Summer Street, which is up here. There's quite a hillside right here, so there's no actual use of the Summer Street frontage, just because it's inaccessible to the property. So what we're doing, this is KV Cap.
Are you able to zoom in? Can you go to the right side of the screen, all the way to the right? Is there a little magnifying glass?
Ah, yes.
Yeah, thanks.
And can I get a little hand to move this around? There, I can do this. I'm sorry, there we go. There, you can see a little bit better. Thank you. This is a 37-unit apartment building, 3 stories tall, that will go on the property here. Existing on property now is a 9-unit apartment that's somewhere in about right here. That's at 52 King Street. 6? I'm sorry, 6 units there. And there's an existing duplex over on a small triangular piece over here. So we're going from 8 units up to 37. These units will be demoed, and I think they're vacant at this point, and so we're just waiting to get this approved so that we can, and part of the approval process is necessary or extremely advantageous when we apply for grant funding, because we're going through Maine State Housing Authority, and that's why we're going for approval at this time. 2 entrances. One will be off King Street right here as it is now, and come up and have access to the front of the building here. The second entrance will be off Gold Street. This is probably a secondary entrance because it's going down quite a steep hill. So we imagine most of the entrance will be off King.
Off King?
Off King Street, yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We have this, as I said, quite a hillside coming down here. This is sort of the bottom of the hill, and we're kind of working our way in. The corner of the building is now settled back in toward there. They've changed this around a little bit today with some last minute that I can show you some more drawings later. But there's a total of 37 units. So we have 2 parking spaces for each unit. Plus down here you can see a couple little parking spaces that are actually on an easement for our abutter right here. They have a place to park, and so we're defining that. So we have a total of 76 spaces that are required. And
I'm sorry, Jeff, can you just, so those parking spaces down there on, like, right on King Street are the neighbors?
Are the neighbors,
You
yes.
had to grant them an
They are
easement?
on our property.
Yeah, okay.
But it's an easement that they have to park. That's where they park now, and so we're putting those 2 for them. Then there's some additional parking that probably will be down along this side here for KV Cap across the street. They're really crunched in with parking, so we'll be putting some spaces in here for them as well.
I'm sorry, you're putting spaces in for KV Cap?
Yeah, KV Cap is the applicant.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure I heard you right.
Yes, they're,
All right, yeah, go ahead.
okay. There are 8 or 9 spaces that are not reserved for them, but allocated for them to use. There's going to be no assigned ones that I know of. The project has municipal water and sewer, and we believe we can tie in right down here. There are water lines and sewer lines down here on King Street. The stormwater will likewise tie in down there. I'm sorry, I zoomed the wrong way. Stormwater will tie in right here on the far side of the street. There is a catch basin right in front of us, but it has an undersized pipe connecting across the street, so we've got to go across the street. There will be catch basins in the parking lot area that will collect as much water as they can, and then we're going to be detaining some of this water underground here. I don't know if you read the letter from the Waterville Sewerage District. They were concerned about an increase in flow. So what we're doing is attenuating that by just putting some oversized culverts, 2-foot diameter culverts, rather than typically I'd use 15-inch culverts. So this extra culvert space will hold that water and kind of meter it out more gradually during storm events. We did have Moist Environmental Service look at the property, and this is one of the first projects that I've ever worked on that has no wetlands. I made a mark on my wall because
Right?
this is so
What a
unusual.
relief.
There are no wetlands here. The permitting is just with you because there's quite a bit of impervious area on site already. So the new increase in impervious area here now is around 13,500 square feet, I believe. So it's a slight increase. But again, that's what we're designing the stormwater system to address. Unfortunately, I didn't get that done in time, so the city engineer had a chance to review that, but when he gets back, he has all that information to look at. We've also received letters already from the Waterville Sanitary District and the fire department saying that they're comfortable with the project. They have some requirements that we do internal sprinkling and design up to particular NFPA standards. That's more the building. I'm the dirt guy telling people where to push dirt. So the structural engineers and architects will be dealing more with the fire protection systems. think so. That's the general introduction to it. Dave Pelton from KV Cap is here to explain a little bit more about the situation, or the project, and he can explain the funding perhaps better than I can, and answer any questions about the operations of it.
I'm sorry, too. I didn't get to review everything this afternoon that came in, but Ann, did you ask them to come back again, or?
They'll come back at the next meeting.
Okay.
The next meeting is the 23rd.
Because all the letters haven't come in, or is it because?
And we will review the sewer
Okay,
outside the stormwater.
okay.
And I guess there was a problem getting the public notices out, so just to keep everything in line.
Okay. I see.
You know,
So we want to postpone to a date certain. so
Which is the 26th?
23rd,
23rd, yeah, sorry. 2 weeks from today.
you bet.
And I believe we have a quorum for that meeting, Ann? Okay. So we're all set for that. Great, sorry, Dave. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Jeff. So I'm Dave Pelton. I represent KV Cap. Just logistically, make sure that's aimed at me. So the KV Cap we have our offices just on the other side of King Street. So that's why, if we had an opportunity to grab a couple more parking spots, we would. That's why that was added in there. And then also, we feel like this is a excellent location because especially for the LIHTC program, because on the application they ask, well, are there services available to the residents? And of course, we do that at our offices already right across the street. So it's kind of a nice fit from a location point of view. When I was in front of this board a couple months ago, one of the questions you asked was, are we communicating with the community, with the South End community? And there's some members here today that may want to comment as well. But we have, since then, we did hold a meeting at KV Cap in which the South End Neighborhood Association attended and brought up some legitimate concerns and some interesting ideas. One of them is that I think with the South End, there are a lot of single-family homes that are rental properties, and having more rental property, even though it's a brand-new multi-million-dollar project, I know one of the concerns was to make sure that we also address some of the home ownership in the South End, and KV Cap is also doing that. We're buying some single-family homes that are currently being rented out, renovating them and turning them into home ownership in the South End. So I think we're trying to address that concern from the last meeting about making sure we're being good neighbors in the neighborhood.
This isn't necessarily relevant to this project, but I'm kind of interested in that point you just made. Is that like going through the land trust, or are you guys doing that on your own?
We're just doing it on our own.
Similar to what you did in Augusta, or?
Sort of. The deeds will be the same in
Yeah.
that once it becomes home ownership, the deed will have in it that it has to be sold to an income qualified person for the next 10 years. So it keeps home ownership affordable.
Yeah, that's a
So-
great program.
But it's just
I like
something we're doing on our own because we think it's a good idea. So
that. Yeah, no, I think that's a great program. It's good to hear. Thank you.
unfortunately, we can only do like one or two houses at a time. We
Right,
can't,
it's
like-
expensive.
Right.
Yeah, understood.
But I think since our offices are there in the neighborhood, it is important for us to make sure that, we do something that's very nice for the neighborhood.
Any questions for,
Just wanted to say, I think it's a great project and needed at this time, so thank you.
I also do have some elevations that came up today. This is, again,
is any of that hill like where the trees are being cleared, or?
no,
Okay.
it's pretty much going to.
It's just gonna
It's going to be a
basically stay.
hillside, yeah. Just bear with me a minute. These are the buildings, and it's a mixture of single bedroom, double bedroom, and three-bedroom units. And they're kind of scattered around to fit in. These are the better units. This is the front of the unit that you'd see from King Street, 3 stories high. And then the back of the unit, again, they're worked into the hillside here. This is a retaining wall right now that we're showing that's kind of giving these units down the corner a little bit of space. And this again shows the existing background elevations. The green is the ground outside the units, so.
I know it's not a dirt question, but are there any plans for solar panels on the roof of that building?
We haven't talked about that yet. There may be an opportunity. The roof looks like it's a pitched roof, but it's actually flat in the middle. It goes up and forms a parapet, so you can, there may be the opportunity to do something like that. I don't know if KV Cap has explored that yet, but.
We actually have.
Okay.
had some discussions about
Can I just ask a question about parking? When, in the process of planning this, how did parking factor in? Was the required minimum number of parking spaces prohibitive in any way?
It's a challenge.
Yeah,
There's a lot of them.
yeah,
But because it's a mixed facility, a mixed size facility with, there's some 3-bedroom units, a lot of 2-bedroom units.
yeah.
We thought it kind of safest to err on the side of providing additional parking. Will all of the spaces be full all of the time? Absolutely not. But
Are you required to have 2 parking spaces per unit?
No.
I don't think so.
This is low-income housing, the state passed.
Yeah.
The
It's
LD
2/3.
2003.
that's right.
It's the lowest.
Your mic,
Yeah.
Ann.
But
LD 2003 decreased the parking requirement for low-income housing, multifamily.
Do you know what that is?
So you are providing more parking than.
Like
required.
significantly more.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's more than our ordinance requires too.
okay. We've discussed potentially reducing that because that reduces impervious area, it reduces runoff, reduces some other things. So that's certainly something that we may look at if that's,
I mean, my suggestion would be, I would like to see the parking reduced.
Yeah.
I think it's more than necessary by ordinance, and then presumably, some people will be gone during the day, and that can be sort of a shared parking spot between KV Cap employees and the people that live there.
You can also do more recreation space.
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is something we had kind of mentioned in the first meeting.
Yeah, is there any plan for any recreation
We haven't
space?
formalized that yet, but this shows you that we own all the way, there's a second entrance off King Street down here. And so there's a lot of open space here that's relatively level. Of course, the hillside is not really usable recreational space. There's some additional area over here, but there has to be let me zoom in a little bit more on this. Our neighbor that's right up in the corner of Gold and Summer, this property right here doesn't have any parking on their property, but they don't also have an easement for parking on ours. But that's what they've done in the past is parked in this area. That's something the surveyors are working out, and that has delayed the project a little bit because this line is sort of a plus or minus 2 feet one way or another. It's not well defined. And so we need to obtain a line easement for that before we can finalize that. But we did provide a stub for a gravel road to go up to access this property, because in the past, he comes in now off of Gold Street and goes to this area to park. So we want to continue allowing him to access across our property for parking, and that's another issue that needs to be worked out.
Dave, is your application to Maine State Housing due the 1st of February or?
It's due in March.
In March, okay.
Yeah.
So you do have a little bit of a buffer then to,
Yeah, although I think.
As soon as-
Isn't every decision, isn't there like a 30-day period
Past appeals.
Oh, for
and
appeals,
stuff.
yes, you're right. So it
we-
needs to be done by,
Right, so it would have to be approved at the next meeting to.
oh, yeah,
hit the
I'm not meaning
deadline.
that, I just mean like with your survey, the survey
Oh,
issue and that.
right,
Yeah, I
right,
don't mean
right.
us delaying,
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Right.
No, I'm not, I'm not. I'm not, yes, I'm not trying to sidetrack you there. I, yeah, I was meaning more like to clarify some of
Yeah.
those things and,
And there were two other things I thought might be relevant. The open space that Jeff was just talking about was, one of the reasons that an exact plan isn't in place is because we want to talk with the South End Neighbor Association again. Like originally we thought maybe a playground might be good, but then we got some feedback that they already have a playground in the South End, maybe something else. So that's something that we hope to just get a community input on a little bit more before we finalize it. And then the other one technicality was mentioned that there's some existing structures, and I think Jeff said that there were not renters, but there are a couple of renters in there. But we're actively trying to find other places for them to go. We don't want to make anybody not have a place to live.
Right.
Just because of this project. So we are very careful about, and we work with the Noonans who are here also, who actually are the owners of 52 King Street right now. So they are helping us relocate those people.
And would they have an option to rent in one of these places if they were going to be displaced?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, for sure.
Yeah,
Except
okay.
that there's going to be about a year of
Right.
no
No,
structure.
I understand.
So,
Okay.
but yeah, in fact, they would probably be, highly qualified renters
Right.
for something like this.
Okay. I had a question about the parking. Sue, low-income housing doesn't require as many parking spaces. Is that the idea? Right, but I guess the assumption is that people who have less income have fewer cars?
no, the assumption is parking is very expensive, as they're saying, right? And it's a deterrent to finishing some of these developments and putting in.
Oh, I
yeah.
see.
So putting
I
in
gotcha.
minimum parking requirements.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Especially some municipalities have pretty strict ones.
Right, okay.
Make it very difficult for
Right.
developers. and-
So,
It's breaking the barriers.
right,
Yeah.
okay. So I would say if you're able to do it, though, I would do it. I mean, that's just my
Able to
opinion.
reduce the
Right.
parking?
No, not reduce the parking. No, I'm
Oh.
saying like, if you're able to do it, parking is good because you do have 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. You do have people who have cars. Those people also have friends who want to be able to come over and visit them. It's not that I want to put up a parking lot everywhere. It's just, yeah, if it's prohibited but you're able to do it, then it's always a nice thing to provide enough parking spots for the people who live there.
Yeah. In this case, it was not the limiting factors
Yeah.
to the number of units. This is in the residential C and residential D zones.
Right.
And so those have, each of those zones have limitations as far as so many square feet of lot per
Correct.
dwelling unit.
Right.
And so we've factored that all together, using a weighted average between the two.
Right.
And determined that 37 is the most we can put on there. If those numbers were to decrease, they may be able to put more units on here.
I see. And that area in the middle you were saying is to collect water?
Yeah,
And-
it is an open island. It'll be somewhat depressed, but that area in front, between the building and King Street kind of slopes down.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a pond there, and I wouldn't want to put a stormwater pond in front of an apartment building
Yeah.
with kids anyway.
Right.
That's just, yeah, don't do it.
Right.
So, we want to, there may be some, during a 25-year storm, the water comes up out of the ground 6 or 8 inches deep for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm just thinking about that storm that we just had. Like, how would it handle something like that?
it would be, everything is wet.
Yeah.
And so there would be there would be some water in there, but it can only come up so far before it runs over the parking lot. and
Right.
Down to King Street. So
Okay.
it's kind of a self-limiting safety factor that,
Jeff,
Exists.
the culverts that you were describing earlier, would those be buried under
Yes.
earth? Okay.
yeah, you would never see them. They're just, they feed into a central point, and then that central point is what I call an outlet control structure that just kind of throttles it down a little bit and doesn't let the water out as quickly. So it forces water back into these pipes underground and, yeah, stores it that way temporarily.
One more question. Is there going to be smoking allowed on the property? Just because,
So the units themselves are no smoking
Yep.
units. So that's also true. So when we did the Gerald Hotel over in Fairfield.
Yeah.
We did have to put a little picnic table across the parking lot for the smokers to go to so they wouldn't smoke too close. Because you can't tell people not to smoke outside. You can only say not
Right.
within so many feet of the building. So we sort of anticipate there may be some outdoor smokers,
yeah,
but not indoors.
just living next to a very large apartment complex in a neighborhood, that can kind of become a problem, right? So like having some sort of designated area
Yeah.
away from other people's homes and, finding an appropriate place might be helpful.
And
Just
it
from
may be
my
that
own
that
experience,
section-
not
Right.
from the,
That's our experience too.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't give them a designated place, so it's usually maybe a little picnic table or even a
Mm-hmm.
gazebo or some sort of something.
yep. Okay, any other questions? Members of the public? All right. So I will make a motion that we postpone this to January 23rd. Okay,
Second.
okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
and we should be able to have them on the first thing on the agenda, Ann, so they can. Okay. Hill Hospitality is requesting an informal pre-application review for construction of an 89-room hotel. He's our neighbor. We see him walk his corgis. So nice.
Mouse is quite a bit slower than mine in the office.
It's too far away.
Okay, bear with me here. And I learned from the
The little
previous
zoom.
presenter that the Zoom button is here. Uh-oh.
Oh.
It's always fun navigating technology that you're not used to.
Nice.
There we go.
I hear you. I'm a Mac girly, so.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Kendra Ramsell. I'm a civil engineer with Sebago Technics, and I'm here representing Hill Hospitality LLC, who is the applicant. We're just here to introduce this new project. It's a Home2 Suites hotel. Just to orient you, we're on the corner of Industrial Road and Armory. This is a vacant lot. It's developed where it's landscaped and there are large developments all around it, but it's empty for the most part. So we are proposing entrance and exit from Armory at the lower part of the screen. The hotel is 16,600 square feet. It's a 4-story hotel with 89 rooms. Required parking is 1 space per room, but we're proposing 95 spaces. So we have an additional 6 spaces from what the requirement is. So as I mentioned, you'll enter the site from Armory. We have full access around the entire site, largely due to fire and just accessing the parking that's proposed. It's a little bit of a challenging site where it slopes considerably from the top left corner, which is the northwest corner, down to the southeast corner, where there's a low point. So the entire hotel and all doors around it they access the main floor. So we kind of have to flatten essentially the area where the building is and where the parking is. So we'll have a cut on one side of the site and some fill on the other side. Because of that, we're proposing 2 retaining walls on the left side and the right side. You can see them kind of lining the parking area. As far as utilities, the building will be served by municipal systems, sewer, water, electrical and telecom will come from Industrial Road. Sewer will be served from Armory. There is a main trunk line that crosses the entire property right now, and it serves some of the buildings to the west side, or the left side in plan view. That trunk line is being abandoned, so those new services for those buildings will come from Armory, and we've coordinated with the sewer district to make sure that that happens as they wanted to. And water will be serviced from Industrial. That was Kennebec Water District's preference. As far as other site elements, we're proposing site lighting around just for safety reasons. We want a well-lit parking lot for pedestrians. As the parking is the building central to all parking. Those will be cut-off fixtures in the parking areas with no spillover over the property line as required by the ordinance. And we'll submit a photometrics plan with the site plan review application. Landscaping, there will be a kind of robust landscape plan, mostly around the building in the green, the dark green areas that you can see there. We are providing some buffering along the edges as well, also as required by ordinance. However, I believe we're in an industrial and heavy commercial zone, so buffering around the site is not as heavy as some residential areas might be. There is a proposed dumpster location in the upper left corner. That's clearly
The 2 orange boxes?
the 2 orange
Yep.
boxes, yep. Clearly kind of an easy maneuver for a trash truck. If a fire truck can get around the site, then a trash truck shouldn't have any issues. I think that pretty much covers it. Oh, stormwater treatment and detention, pretty important item. We have just over an acre of impervious, so we'll be designing a subsurface sand filter for treatment and detention of stormwater on the site. That subsurface sand filter will go underneath the parking in the front of the building. And it will be designed to reduce flooding. We'll meet post-development rates will be at or below those that are experienced in the pre-developed condition. And that system uses, as in the name, the sand filter to remove pollutants and treat for different things like phosphorus, nitrogen, et cetera. That system will outlet to the low point that I mentioned is in the southeast corner of the site. And there's kind of a detention area already there because in the existing condition, all the water drains to that point. There's a culvert there already that drains to the municipal system within Industrial and Armory Road. I think I'm done now.
Great.
If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have a question. Is there any plan for an elevated sign or any kind of signage around the property?
I had a feeling that might come up. We don't have a proposed location for the sign yet, but we will make sure that we do. I know there is signage on the building, and my guess is that any freestanding sign would be pretty close to the entrance.
Is there any restriction on height for a sign? Like you wouldn't be able to see it from the highway probably, but it would still be.
I don't think you can see it from the highway. If you can see it from the highway, DOT regulates the
Okay.
height.
We'll look into the sign ordinance and just make sure that we usually provide sign details with our site plan packages. So you'll be able to see any dimensional standards associated with the sign when we get to that point.
How many trips do you anticipate in and out?
We are under, so we've done a traffic study
Okay.
and we're under the 100 trip threshold.
Awesome.
That is why we have exactly 89 rooms. Yeah, so traffic will be addressed. I believe you'll see in the traffic memo that's submitted, we are meeting site distance, the trip generation threshold, not requiring a TMP. And the last thing they address is high crash locations, of which we are not in the vicinity of
Okay.
any that are noted by DOT.
Great. Any other questions? Awesome. Members of the public? You're dwindling.
Solar panels on the roof.
Will there be solar panels on the roof?
The roofing makes so it can have solar panels.
I do not believe so. I do believe the intention is, however, to use mini splits to heat and cool the building. So a little bit more of an environmentally friendly heat and cooling source.
We have a solar discussion next, so that's why there's been a theme.
Your
throughout.
mic's not on.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, and all, that just makes me think, all the mechanical equipment for the building will be on the backside.
Okay.
There will be a transformer, probably, we haven't cited that yet, but probably on the back right-hand corner because power is going to come in from industrial. So that will likely be on that side. I don't believe there is a generator proposed, but any of the heating and cooling units that are needed for the mini splits will be on the backside. There's also, just for a little bit more information on the building, there's also an indoor swimming pool. And in the backside, kind of tucked into that little corner, it's in gray, that's an outdoor patio that will have fencing around it, some sort of pedestrian decorative fencing.
Is there a reason why you decided to come off Armory Road and not industrial?
I'm sorry, Henry Hess is the project manager for
Okay.
this.
No,
He would
that's
have made that decision, but my guess is that it has a lot to do with the existing grades.
Okay.
Industrial Road on the northeast corner of the site is a lot higher there than it is at the corner where the two roads meet. So it would have been a lot more earthwork and stuff to get an entrance in on that side, especially up high. So I think that this was the more reasonable location due to some of the site constraints that are existing.
Great.
Do you know if there's a plan for any event space inside the structure that,
Meeting rooms or?
My guess is yes.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, my guess is yes, but we will provide a full floor plan with our site plan review package, so we'll be
We
able
just
to
asked
answer
because
that.
we don't have a lot of meetings.
Well, exactly.
Spaces around here.
Yeah, that would be nice.
This is, I think this is a great location for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
It's needed,
Yep.
so.
yeah, I believe, and this went through subdivision, right, about a year
Yes.
ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, just to modify some lot lines.
Yep. And this type of hotel is needed,
Yeah,
so.
excellent.
Great. Well, thank you. We'll
right.
see you again soon.
Thank you.
Okay, discussion on revisions to the zoning ordinance. We'll open the floor up to planning board members. Dave.
I took some notes.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
David.
Excuse me, before you start,
Yeah.
findings of fact form, can you all tell me where that
Did you sign the findings and fact form?
I only have a green pen. I need a black pen. I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
So yeah, I took down a lot of notes. I went back and watched the city council meeting back in September that this got sent to us from, and there were a few different things that were said, concerns about with solar farms going in, with impacts to wildlife, cutting down trees, erosion, things like that. And there was a question of should the ordinance be rewritten? That was you, Rebecca. And so that got me wondering, what is the ordinance? Let's go read it. And I am just going to come out and say I agree that things should be rewritten because the information is all over the place. There are multiple, the airport district can have solar, the airport industrial district can have solar, and then there's this solar farm district that can be anywhere, and it's based on our recommendation and a site plan review, and that is all talked about in a bunch of different places, and certain things were say, oh, and then go read this other thing to find out what we're talking about. So I do agree it's kind of a mess. I won't go through and read off all of those different sections unless somebody really wants me to. And then, Ann, you sent a document today, forwarded a document today. I'm not really sure where it came from. I think it was the Maine Audubon.
Yes, the Audubon, Maine.
Yeah. And after reading through all of the other stuff, the good thing is I think most of it is actually covered in what we're doing today. It's just a mess. And so it's hard to understand that what we're doing today is really following those recommendations. There's a couple of things that I think could be potentially discussed, like the restricting the use of pesticides or herbicides on solar farm properties. But for the most part, we're covering it through the site plan review process. So I did find a couple of things that were that caught my attention, like in the site plan review. I think it was in the subdivision ordinance. Things like lot configurations should be designed to maximize the use of solar, but that's not really farms. And then how streets should be oriented. Again, that's not really farms. So what we're, I believe, talking about is solar farms, which we define as anything occupying 1,750 square feet, which is about 42 by 42 feet, which isn't really big. So Tom Klepak isn't here, but he had mentioned, talked about some stuff in the city council meeting, wondering, how many megawatts Waterville uses. I don't know if anyone ever looked that information up, versus how much it generates. I personally bought a share in a solar farm that is located in Whitefield, Maine. I have 0.817% of that 1.37 megawatt farm. That's 11.2 kilowatts. So that covers my house. Waterville has about 18.5 megawatts of solar farm capacity today. That would be the equivalent of about 1,655 homes. So a drop in the bucket. So I think we'd have to cover pretty much all of Waterville's available space with solar panels to cover what we consume, especially with Hudamaki. So,
Is that the goal?
No,
I hope not.
I mean, no, is the goal, no, I don't mean it's the goal to cover the whole city with solar panels. Is the goal to even out our usage?
Tom asked the question.
Okay.
So I dug into it a little bit and quickly found that we would have to cover a lot of land.
All right.
So, so anyway, yeah, I think that we could rewrite some stuff to make it a lot clearer and potentially add some things if anybody wanted to suggest that. That's all I had.
Okay, other comments? I'll open it up for discussion.
Does everyone have a copy of this? This is the main Audubon information.
I'll take one.
It got emailed to us, but thanks.
Thank you.
And does anybody, so this says February 2020, does anybody know if any of this information was used to write any of our ordinances?
Well, our
Anybody
ordinance originally was different. And then
We had a solar committee.
there was a solar committee, and then 2 mayors ago, it was changed to this solar zone where it has to be approved
Uh-huh.
site by site. So it used to be allowed in the rural residential as well.
Yep. Okay. Oh, without any approval? Just,
Well, it had to go
site
through
plan, but
site plan and stuff.
no zoning.
Yeah, it didn't need to be rezoned.
Right.
We had
So
like
city council didn't
identified
have
zones
to
that it
approve
was
it.
able to be in. Right,
Yep.
Ann? Am I remembering this incorrectly?
It was a long time ago.
It was. It was in the rural residential because I remember it could have been used the same zone as mobile home parks, and that was the controversy and how,
Violet,
yes.
on County Road. Yeah, very good.
Yes, there was a situation on County Road where someone wanted to put in a solar farm
Got it.
and threatened that if that wasn't approved, they would put in a mobile home park as well. And so this whole change to the ordinance where each one has to be zoned was reactionary to that situation. For some historic context for everybody. Yes, Counselor Green.
Rebecca Green, Ward 4. I thought I'd just, first of all, thank you for diving into this, since I'm the one who initiated this conversation. Some of the things that did concern me as I was observing solar projects going in, around the state and reading about them, were things that I don't think were on the radar when we established our ordinance. And one thing I've noticed as projects are coming to the council is that we don't really have a solar farm zone. As you mentioned, it's wherever anyone wants to put something, that could be a zone. And that's one of the elements that concern me, especially where we're looking at land use. We don't have a lot of land in Waterville, and one of the things that came out of the discussion that you've had is looking at land that is, I forget the language, but highly valued agricultural land, things like that. So looking at limiting where these projects go in is something that I think would be helpful. And then I want to thank Claire Protnicki, who's here and who was on the original solar committee, for drawing my attention to this document, which you all have now. I think it has some great language and on things we could add. For instance, fencing should allow for, I think it's 5 inches at the bottom for terrestrial animals, things like that. So I would just recommend that we look at this and revise our ordinance to using some of the salient points from this document. And, yeah.
But do you have thoughts as to where you would want to see solar farms, how you would prioritize preserving agriculture land versus where the water and sewer lines are? Because as you know, obviously, the Housing Committee, Rebecca's chair of the Housing Committee, the Housing Committee's talked about the high cost of installing water and sewer lines for housing. So ideally, we wouldn't be installing solar farms where we do have water and sewer lines, which would put the solar farms out in the rural residential zone, which is where the agricultural land is. So I just wondered if you had come up with any thoughts as to how you balance those two things, preserving the land. Is the mouse there? Because I did bring something else.
Oh, okay. Yeah, great. I really just wanted to have this discussion because I think we should. One thing that I think we should look at is, what are the other possible uses for our land, and is solar the best use? But
That's
I hope will dovetail with the comprehensive plan.
right. I was
Right?
about to mention
Yeah.
that would probably more of a discussion for them.
one of the suggestions that I had made, like, it feels like a decade ago at this point, when it first came to us, was something that I think I saw in maybe Topsum's ordinance, and some of these municipalities, although similar to Waterville, have a lot more land. Like, we're unique in the fact that we have a very small amount of land that we're working with. But one thing that Topsum did that I kind of liked when we're talking about prioritizing, agricultural land over, like the waste site that used to be the former dump, right? Like those types of places, and just disincentivizing some of those more agricultural farmland type things. And I know when I had first sent that in a discussion back and forth, someone said, well, there's no farming that happens in Waterville, and actually there is. Like, all of those fields that we're talking about are Hayed.
And I have that map.
Yeah, and Ann has the map. So like, when we talk on County Road, which that is in a solar zone, which will be expiring, I assume, soon, that's farmed. Like, that is Hayed land. That's farming. So although maybe we don't see necessarily farm animals or barns on these areas, they are used for farming. So, and Ann has that identified. So maybe one thing to look at is how we disincentivize people from using those, and maybe that's a higher application fee if you choose to look at this type of site, or, I mean, one of the Maine Farm Trust did a study on some of these ordinances and whether or not it does disincentivize, and it looks like it doesn't, so maybe we need to find a better way, right? I would think a higher application fee, like if I can have site A or site B, and site B costs more, I would go with site A. But according to their study, the Farm Trust, and I can send that to you too, Claire, if you'd like. It's really interesting. They identified a couple different municipalities and some of the unique things in their solar ordinances and what the implications were. But finding some sort of way to disincentivize, right? Like, if you're using land that could be used for housing or farming or, hiking or snowshoeing or whatever it is, what would the implications be? How do we disincentivize using that without saying every single
Right.
time we have to rezone it? Because I don't necessarily think that this is a good system either.
Thompson, wasn't that also the one that had a certain percentage cap?
Yes, it
Yeah,
did.
which
That was
I really
another
like the idea of
suggestion
that
that I
too,
had
yeah.
made, looking at the amount of land that we do have, right? And what is available, right? Coming up with a percentage, like, we are comfortable with solar farms occupying this percentage of available land in Waterville, and like, once we hit that, we're capped out and we're not gonna accept new projects for the time being. Like, having some sort of parameters around what the city's comfortable with for land use, right? Like, what is appropriate?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's exactly the kind of thing that I think we should be considering. I want to go back to the point that David raised about, Tom's point about a goal of replacing the energy that we use with solar energy. I'm not sure, that goal is feasible, but I think it speaks to the purpose of a solar project. We have a bunch of different types, right? We have some projects that are actually serving communities in Waterville with providing energy to communities in Waterville, and some that aren't. We have land that the city's renting, and we have purchased land where people are installing an array. David, you mentioned that 1,000 households, I think you said, what did you say about 1,000 households? You said it was a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, let me bring it back up. Okay, so with the document that Ann shared, that listed out the existing solar farms in Waterville.
Oh, right,
It
okay.
added up to 18.5 megawatts. And that would be 1,655 houses like mine.
Right. So I would
Right.
say that's not a drop in the bucket because I believe we have 5,000 households in Waterville. So that's actually quite a lot, right?
But if you if you look at that's households.
Right.
Waterville also has
Yeah,
a lot
absolutely.
of commercial that they consume a lot more.
Yeah.
And industrial and yeah.
And I'm not suggesting
So-
that we should adopt that goal,
Yeah, yeah,
just to
yeah.
be clear.
Yeah.
But it's something to think about. You know, if we're going to use our land for solar generation, you know, there's an economic value, obviously, but I think we should consider the environmental impact as well and be thinking about our carbon footprint
Do
as
we
a
know
city.
what type of tax revenue right now it's generating, like the existing solar farms are generating?
How much land are we taking up with the current solar farms too? Do you know?
No
You
idea.
I wasn't sure if you said that.
No.
I think we can find answers to these.
Yeah,
I-
it would just be interesting, you know, what is the ROI on this?
Yeah.
Like, how much,
Exactly.
yeah, and
Would it make sense for the city to have their own solar farm to generate,
Well-
to offset like?
I think there's a lot of creative things that can be
Yeah.
done as well
Yeah.
with putting panels in different places.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard wonderful things about there's some big universities out in the Midwest that take their parking lots around their football stadiums and make them covered.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loves covered parking, and they do it with solar panels. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
not a bad idea.
Right, and we don't necessarily have to dedicate unused land for solar panels, like,
Right.
rooftops, right?
Yeah.
So maybe there's a way, I don't know. I know that this is broadening the discussion a little bit. But incentivizing use of solar panels that dump like electricity back into the grid, that offset the city's costs.
Yeah, exactly.
Help
I would love to see that as
alleviate
well.
the tax burden a little bit would be cool.
Yeah.
well,
If
that's
it's possible.
different though than
I know, it's
Than
not
the
zoning,
ordinance.
but,
a
I mean,
solar, yeah.
yeah.
But maybe it is something that the Community Resilience Committee should take up, and we certainly, it sounds like there is interest in rewriting the ordinance. Certainly, this document and the one you found are good guidelines, I think.
Yeah, I do agree that it's not crazy to have a zone or some sort of, specifics around what kind of land we can dedicate to solar
Yeah.
farms.
Okay.
Can I ask a few questions? And I don't want my questions to come off as like, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate, sort of, like just asking some questions, thinking. So when we talk about land that could be dedicated to solar farms, and I think you used an example as like of land that could be used for farming, but isn't being used for farming, right? Like presumably it's privately owned property, but someone doesn't want to farm it anymore. But they don't want to get rid of their property, they want to make some money off of it. Or they think, this is a great way to do something that's environmentally friendly. I think I'm hearing something about disincentivizing someone from doing something that presumably is good for the environment. But, so I'm just sort of, I'm thinking like, and I don't know that I've come up with an answer, so I'm just, like, I think that's part of this discussion. Like, why would we want someone who's trying to hold on to their property, someone who maybe has held a property that's been in their family for generations, that can't farm it anymore, that wants to find a way to make use of it, make money, do something that's good for the environment, and they've come up with this as an alternative. Suddenly they're being told they can't because we have so much land that we've decided could be used for this purpose and they can't. Instead, we want them to develop apartments. Well, they don't have the money for that. Is that what I'm understanding? Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Well, it's about planning, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's about putting in some guidelines for where what happens in what part of the city,
Right.
right? I mean, so yeah, we don't want to we don't want to necessarily do that. But on the other hand, I think an anything goes approach is not what we should be doing.
But we're not if we're
devil's advocate
right.
back.
But we're not. Like everybody who comes in front of us and we have a thoughtful discussion and we talk about it and we consider each project independently. It's not an anything goes, right? Like each project is considered independently. Is it not?
Well,
Based on the zone that it's in, right? So I
Okay.
used to
Okay,
live
fair.
in a residential A
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
No Airbnb allowed.
Right.
Now I live in a Res B, Airbnb allowed.
Right.
Res A, no
No. Yep.
businesses. Res
Yeah.
B, yes, businesses.
Well,
So,
but each solar project is rezoned.
Right,
It's
but-
not consistent with its current zoning.
right, but we're talking about applying as, right, she's saying, okay, I don't wanna like.
right, if we
go through all
don't
this,
put
but-
any restrictions in, it makes it very hard to plan because
Okay.
when somebody comes, if it's, oh, geez, as a city, we really don't want this farm there, we don't have a legal leg to stand
Right.
on
Okay.
if we haven't said, this is what our land use plan is.
Okay.
And I sound like a broken record, but that's what the Comprehensive Plan Review Commission is
that's
going
the
through
point.
right
Right.
now
Mhm.
and going to be making suggestions, I believe, in the next few months.
Great, yeah.
For what our land use plan should be for the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
Once that comes out, we should be able to definitely revisit some of our ordinances and base them on that comprehensive plan.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there are a lot of great things in here, and I think the language is really reasonable. Yeah.
And I think it is a valid question, too, you know, but this is, like I said, I feel like we should be thoughtful about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say again, I definitely think that we could clean up the mess that is everything. If you go to our ordinances, go to the search box and hit solar, you
Yeah.
get like 15 results.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be that way.
And to be fair, I mean, this is 3 years old, right? It was new territory then, and
Right.
that's another reason that I thought, okay, we've
Yeah.
had a few years, let's take another look. So thank you again.
Yeah. I really do like some of the stuff. I thank you for the physical copy because now I was able to underline it. Like, you know, I personally would be a big fan of saying, you know what, solar farms aren't allowed to use herbicides and pesticides at all. I would love to see that. The fences, the elevation of the fences, the wooden escape poles, I think all of this is really, really good stuff. That when we clean up the ordinances, I would love to see some of this stuff in it.
I'd like to see a pretty comprehensive reclamation standard for when these fields are outdated or outmoded. To what depth does the soil have to be turned over or cleaned? Does the concrete footings need to be removed? If there's gravel beds underneath the panels, do they need to be removed? Just get in depth on that. Part of that Topsom report had a good section on that, and I thought that was pretty valuable.
Yeah.
So we can revisit that.
Brian, this might be something you can answer, I'm not sure, but like, would this be something you would require a developer to be like bonded for, to ensure that they have the adequate capacity in order to do the remediation after? You know, what if this company goes out of business or, and
Right, we don't want to be stuck.
in 30 years, is that?
That's toxic solar panel fields.
Yeah, I think, and some of the agreements we have already is that.
So the city only has agreements on 2 of the farms.
Right.
So they all have to provide a reclamation plan, but I don't recall that there's any bonding involved. Certainly, there hasn't been with the planning board with the other projects that aren't city projects.
So something we could look at.
Yeah, it might- Yeah, it might be something worth looking at, just to ensure and protect the city that the resources will be available for the decommissioning.
And none of them are here, but reading this document and remembering all of the ones that I saw previously, the developers were very aware of some of this stuff, and they're already doing a really good job. So I think, you know, some of these things that if we put it in writing, we're not going to get pushback, which is good. So.
The other thing I would like to see maybe cleaned up in our ordinance is perhaps we could differentiate between different size projects, right? Like there's something completely different than having a solar panel. Like maybe I can't put one on my roof, but I can fit one in my backyard, right? That's gonna help my house that's feeding to my grid.
Yeah.
Versus a very large commercial size project versus a smaller like accessory one, similar to like what Bill Mitchell did, that's feeding his businesses and his buildings, right? And that it's enough to generate that. So there are different types, or at Central Maine Motors, similar as well, different types, and maybe we can delineate between that and the expectations for, based off of their size.
I agree. Yeah, right now there's
Yeah.
just one size.
Something
Yeah,
like
they all are the same.
something like a personal and then like commercial, small commercial, large
like
commercial.
personal
something
Right
like
now
that.
use or- yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right now it's ground mounted that are 1750 square feet. So,
Yeah, just real quick on
Yeah.
that point, the large-scale solar arrays in residential areas and residential neighborhoods is another issue that comes up. We had this in Saco. We had someone that wanted to do a pretty large array on a pretty tight residential street in their front lawn.
Yep. Oh,
And just the impacts that would have to neighborhood character, you know, literally kind of shading of their neighbors', lawn. It was so large. So, you know, maybe some of those things need to be addressed also, just in tighter residential settings and how large you can have as far as an array, you know, say on your front lawn or in your back lawn.
Yeah,
So it goes to a
freestanding,
neighbor's lawn.
or-
Correct,
yeah.
freestanding, yep.
Also, they make those very tall sun tracking arrays. We haven't really encountered that in
The kinda
Waterville. They have the
move.
Maine Beer Co. and
Yeah.
some in Denham, Brunswick, where they're like 15, 20 feet tall. You wouldn't want that in your backyard, so,
especially not with 50-mile-an-hour winds.
no.
There's actually one of those in Oakland,
Oh, there is? Yeah. Okay.
Really? Where?
heading up towards Middle Road.
Oh, okay.
That way, it's just, you start up.
A personal?
The farm that sits back, you know, behind, they have an array that moves with the sun.
it just popped into my head now. Does anybody know, do we limit anything with windmills? Personal use or commercial use? Is there any limits on windmills in Waterville? I know 20 years ago it was real popular to get these
Yeah.
little windmills in your backyard, and so,
Yeah.
Planning on getting one?
nope. Nope.
Yes.
Possible, I realize roofs are something that's private property and stuff, but if we could incentivize people with big flat roofs, like stores and apartment buildings and stuff, to put solar up on the roofs, it makes a lot more sense on the roof than they do on the ground.
One consideration you have to take into the additional loading of the roof, which can cost hundreds
Yeah,
of
there's
thousands of
structural
dollars.
issues.
And when we talk about incentives, I'm not sure the planning board has the authority to start going, hey, we'll give you tax credits, property tax credits, right? We can do that,
But
right?
maybe there are
Yeah.
grants out there that can be looked into to see if the city can get some sort of fund or establish a fund to help homeowners that are interested in some of
Maybe
those.
more public buildings,
Yeah,
Public, yeah,
yep,
Look at it and just, yeah.
like this.
yeah, and the schools. Yep, yep.
Yeah, I think
will
schools would
just-
be great.
Personally, I was told that I would need to cut down some trees
Yeah.
to put panels on my roof, which is why I went with the farm. And then I lost one of those trees in that last storm. But it wasn't nearly as bad as someone else I know.
All right. So we'll continue this discussion in the next meeting then, or?
I think that's a good idea because we
Okay.
only have one item on the agenda right now, which is 52 King Street.
Okay. Sounds great.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved. A second.